Welcome to the Out Agenda, coming to you on archive.kpfk.org. I'm Rita Gonzales. First of all, Happy New Year, everyone. On this month's segment of Radio QGLLU, the guest is Diana Diaz, who is the creator and founder of the Goddess Mercado and the Queer Mercado. And there's so much that she does, so we're going to get right to it right now. Welcome to the Radio QGLLU podcast, the show that takes a deep dive into what the queer, gay, and lesbian Latine community is talking about. I'm Rita Gonzales.
I'm Lydia Otero.
I'm Mario Novoa.
In today's episode, we're talking with Diana Diaz. She was born and raised in East Los Angeles, and she's the daughter of Mexican immigrants who introduced her to the world of street vending and apparel construction. These intersectionalities inspired her to create MexiChic Crafts, the first luxury leather brand from East Los Angeles. This fashionista, activista, pays homage to her cultura with exclusive and colorful designs that inspire love and alegría. Diana is also the founder and creator of the Goddess Mercado, the Queer Mercado, and the Goddess Mercado Boutique nonprofit collective. Its mission is to create safe market spaces for youth to express themselves creatively, gain lucratively, and with the support of the local community and schools. Hola, Diana. Can you share with our listeners a bit about your personal background, about growing up in East Los Angeles, and about your family's involvement in street vending and apparel construction? All of that seems really interesting, and how it influenced your journey.
Well, I grew up here in East LA in City Terrace in the same home. Both of my parents are from Mexico. My father's from Jalisco, Southern. My mother from Sinaloa, Northern. And they met here on the RTD bus. You know, they both worked in factories. And they married 3 months after meeting. So you could imagine what that was like. They didn't really know each other. And my father, he was very talented, very creative. One day he decided, you know what, I'm not going to work for anybody. I'm going to start my own factory. And he rounded up the neighbors and my cousins and an uncle, and they dug out the basement of our hillside home in the City Terrace Hills. And he constructed a factory, and he bought like 6-7 machines throughout his business trajectory, and he started making blankets. He was a tailor by trade. This is what he learned in Mexico. So he knew apparel construction, and he was working for various interior designers, and that's how he came up with the idea to start doing interior home designs on his own. And we started off, he would take us out to Cesar Chavez, it was back then Brooklyn Avenue, and we would sell pillows. And I remember, pillows used to be $5, and they slowly started increasing. I remember he would tell us, it's getting expensive, we're increasing the price. And we would go out to Brooklyn Avenue and carry the pillows over our shoulders. We were all cute, my 3 other siblings, and we would sell these pillows, and they would give us 10 cents per pillow that we sold. So, my parents would wait in the van and just, watch us. But even though it was unpleasant and I didn't like it, it was the only way that I was able to make money. My parents, because my mom didn't work, my dad didn't allow for my mother to work. We only relied on the income, and he didn't believe in getting food stamps and getting money off the government. He's like, no, that's only for people that are not able to work. We can work, so we're gonna work. My mom did, take advantage, and when Reagan was in office, she did line up for the cheese, so we ate quesadillas and nachos during that time. But we relied on my dad's work, and I learned to make some money. I learned to save money. At the end of every shift, we would go into Lucky's. Back then it was Lucky's on Lorena and Cesar Chavez. And he would tell us, okay, this is how much you made. Here's your money. You guys can go in and buy whatever you want to buy. And because at home we didn't have juice, We didn't have, like the frosted flakes of fancy cereal. We didn't have luxuries. We had the basics: salsa, frijoles, arroz, the very basics. So we would go in and we would buy like our chocolates, my Springfield soda. That was my experience. So even though I didn't enjoy it, I learned that I had to work because I wanted to make money for these little luxuries. And as I got older, and our parents started giving us more duties, I learned how to sew. So we started making the pillows and stuffing the pillows, and we would tally up everything that we were doing in helping our parents. And I was good at making money. I was a good worker, and with the extra textiles, or sometimes left over with the prints, I would make Barbie clothes and Barbie pillows and Barbie blankets. And I remember setting them up, and I would say, Dad, here, make this, because he used to quilt. He was so talented. He could make a full queen size pillow with no pattern, just on his own. I would go up to his machine and just watch him manipulate the material, and it was just talented. But he started quilting little blankets for me, and I started making this and selling at the swap meet. By 16, I made enough money to buy a car. I bought a cool, I was kind of cool, and I like fashion. So I bought myself a cool yellow Jeep, and I stuffed the back seat with pillows, and I went to downtown and I bought jewelry, and I would drive out to Pomona swap meet and sell on my own as a 16-year-old, because I couldn't rely on my parents to give me any money. I couldn't ask them for money. They wouldn't give me any money, So I stopped asking and I kept working, and I started enjoying, the fruit of my labor. Working is hard, and you do have to sacrifice outings with friends or parties, but in the end, it's paid off. And what is most important now is that I learned some very important skills that I wasn't able to learn while I was in school, while I was at college. While I was in high school, I used to go to downtown with my dad, buy material, because I was learning the apparel construction. The yards were like 50 cents, 60 cents. So I learned to make pants. My dad taught me how to size up the pants, and I started making pants for my friends and for myself, and I would sell them. So, and I would dress very fashionable, and I would match the clothing I would make with some of the thrifting or the clothes that I was given at church. So along with the street vending and the swap meet selling, I have to add that we ended up selling at the swap meet, at Pomona swap meet, for like 20 years. And that was able to help my parents pay off their home. And they bought a second home across the street. And they put my older brother, who, he had some issues, some trauma that he was dealing with. So they put him in private school, and they bought all their cars and their equipment cash. So this is what street vending did for me and my family. It did create economic opportunity, and it gave us a home and headquarters. So we have a home where we go back to all the holidays and all the birthdays and on Sundays. And that's my experience.
That's such an exciting and inspiring stories. You learned some skills.
All that experience that you learned. So then you started MexiChic crafts.
While I was in college, I was making purses. My dad, after he retired, he did start working for Christopher Lowe. Remember Christopher Lowe, interior designer? And at the end of his shifts, he told me, like, they throw away these bundles of really beautiful textiles. He's like, they're just scraps. He's like, but I think you could do something with them. So we would go in the evenings and pick up the bundles, and I started making purses. I was already making totes and selling really cute totes at Melrose Swap Meet, but I started developing different patterns, and I was making cute triangle purses and with embellishments, because I would buy closeout stuff to, just be creative. And I met a buyer from Wet Seal, and Wet Seal was kind of like a Contempo, like a Forever for Fashion 21. And this woman, she placed an order. She's like, I really like this bag. It was a cute little triangle bag that had a tiny slot, and you could put like a wristlet, and it had dangling fringes with beads. And she asked me, you think you can make 800? I was like, sure, I can do it. And I went home. I said, Dad, I got an order for 800. Can we do it? And he's like, see, let's do it. And she sent me the vendor instructions like this big. And it was very intimidating. And I remember putting my life on hold for a while. And back then you could find ladies that would sew on La Opinion. So my dad and I cut bundles. He taught me how to sew and mass produce. And I had a couple of women from the neighborhood helping me sew these purses, and I had to put the label and had to put tissue, and it was very precise. I had to make an appointment to deliver. And what I didn't know about, working in fashion is that when you're a contractor, you don't get paid till 30 or 2 months after. They have what's called net 60. So after I delivered my product, I didn't get paid till 2 months after. It was very discouraging for me. I didn't have a network. I didn't have anyone that had experience selling to corporate. So even though she placed an order, she told me, I really like the purses. If you give me a line sheet, I will order, but you have to be 1 or 2 seasons ahead. I was in college. I was on emergency credential. I was already teaching. It was too much. So I stopped. And although I was still creating on the side, I didn't continue with that. I got married and I had a son, and my son was born profoundly deaf. And having a child with disability really affected our marriage.
And this is what makes you who you are today.
Yeah, I think so. I think that so far your interview is just like engaging and insightful.
I think I only get emotional because he's 16 now.
Uh,
And he was implanted with cochlear implants, and he's at Garfield High School with me. I'm a school counselor now at Garfield. He's in the mariachi, so he's the first deaf mariachi in East LA, and he
cool.
helps me at the mercados, and he's doing amazing.
Good.
But the deafness did affect my relationship, and we divorced, and it wasn't a really terrible divorce. It was, we still communicate. Started funneling my energy back into the purses, and that's where I came back to vending. And I started constructing the purses again, and this time with a little bit more resources. I met with a leather manufacturer, and I started designing the purses, leather purses, and that's where I started MexiChic Crafts. And I think that got me through the painful time where I was dealing with my son's deafness, my divorce, my mental health. And I funneled my energy into something creative, something productive, and something that was also creating economic opportunities, amongst other opportunities for myself. And that's where MexiChic started. That's 9 years ago.
And not only, I mean, it's interesting to hear the trajectory of your design and building of a business, but you also have this insight into the street vending, the opportunity to create markets, and this enterprising spirit led you to create a couple of entities, right? More a few, I should say, the Mercado, the Queer Mercado, the Goddess Mercado Boutique, which is a nonprofit collective. Can you maybe share a little bit about what led you to start the Queer Mercado?
I'm a school counselor. I've been working for LAUSD the last 30 years already, more because I was a TA. But I was working at Roosevelt High School. And at Roosevelt High School, there's a lot of immigrant in Boyle Heights, Lydia, where you lived for many years. There's a lot of immigrants. It's very transient. There's a lot of families that come and go. And I remember while I was at Roosevelt High School, when I would meet with parents, I had pictures that the kids would bring me from their trips to Mexico. And one of the students asked me one time, Miss, are you Mexican? I was like, yeah, I'm Mexicana, I'm Chicana. She's like, you're not ashamed? And although you can tell I have an East LA accent, I couldn't believe that this student thought that I didn't realize that I was Mexicana. I realized that it was really important to start really embracing and showcasing, my culture and my fashion. I have to add that. And I started wearing more arracadas, more Mexican, more rebosos. And I was inspired also by a teacher of mine that used to dress like that, I would be so happy to see her with her rebosos, with her trenzas, that she was so proud of her culture. That was the inspiration in really promoting the fashion, or working in environments where there were other vendors that promoted our culture and our fashion. But the queer mercado itself came after the goddess mercado. I started the goddess mercado with 13 women, 13 of my friends, variety of vendors that had the same work ethic, they had the same creative spirit, that were all professionals, that were just doing this on the side. And I was still in touch with many of my students. And many of my students that I had great connections with were also students that would come out to me. As a school counselor working in East LA and Boyle Heights, and working with a lot of Latinos, a lot of students whose parents are immigrants, that maybe don't have the network, don't have the know-how, don't know how to navigate, how to support their children when they're coming out, where there's a lot of machismo, when there's not a lot of acceptance, like many of the community members that I'm working with, stories they share with me. So I worked with this one student that came out to me, and we developed a really strong bond, and we kept working together. And after I started the Goddess Mercado, we were doing a photo shoot, and he asked me, Miss, that's great that you're doing this for the women of East LA, but what about the queer community? We need a queer space in East LA. I'm tired of going to the West Side. He's like, I'm broke, I'm a student. I actually go to the West Side. He was seeing his doctor in the West Side. He's like, and they give me tokens, and those are the tokens that I save when I go out. But sometimes when I go out, the experience isn't always pleasant. There's racism, and I don't really feel like included, like I belong there. And I wish there was something in East LA besides a couple of bars, because I think he was still 19. And it was in my living room, and that moment I was like, what a great idea, because of my experience, working with the families. I had a lot of mothers that would come to me and bring their child and say, Miss Diaz, mi hijo, I found her wrapping her breasts, you have to help me change her. And I was like, what are you talking about? These are amazing kids that I have been working with. And I was already a little resentful because my son was born with deafness. And I remember telling one parent, Señora, and this is after you develop a relationship with the parent, of course. I told his mom, Señora, discúlpeme, con todo respeto, with all due respect, there's nothing wrong with your child. My child is deaf. Your child has straight A's, is completely healthy. There is nothing wrong with your child. There's something wrong with you. And we could get you help. But I'm telling you, this is after developing a relationship. And I had a lot of these conversations, as a school counselor in Boyle Heights with moms. Rarely with dads. I think it was only one father that I got to talk with. It was moms, and there were a lot of kids that got kicked out of their homes, and moms that would tell me in front of their kids, no la quiero, la que se largue de mi casa si va a hacer eso. And it was so heartbreaking, because when you work with kids this closely, like, you fall in love, you love them, it hurts. And I remember at the time I would Google like services, support groups. And although there were support groups, everything was in Hollywood. Everything was on the West Side. Not a lot of groups that I could reference in LAUSD on their website. Now there is. During that time, there wasn't. And so when Pedro, this was my student's name, asked me for the queer space, I thought, absolutely, we need it. So I called LAUSD because I had already secured a space, and I said, hey, I have this idea, this came up. Would you be open to having a queer marketplace at the parking lot? And after being told no at a couple of other locations that hosted us, LAU says, yes, absolutely. It's about time. They told me it's about time. Whatever you need, and we'll help you. We'll walk you through it. And that's how I secured the space. After speaking to Pedro, within 2 months, we started the Queer Mercado. I reached out to an artist that I had seen on Instagram, and I reached out to the women that were already part of the Goddess Mercado who identified as queer, lesbian. And I asked them if they would consider it, and they were like, yes. I said, okay, I'm going to need help in organizing. Reach out to your network. We want to make it exclusively queer vendors, and primarily, queer vendors of color. And although we're exclusive, we are inclusive. So if anybody else, wants to participate, we allow it, we welcome it. And that's how we started. We started in July of 2021 with 40 vendors at the parking lot of a school in East LA, in the heart of East LA. And we, at one point, we were over 120, over 120 vendors. Since then, we are now at the East LA Civic Center. We host about 70 to 80 vendors a month, and we've partnered up with Eastmont Farmers Market, and now they're in charge of the food vendors. And it's been a really, really beautiful, inspiring, informative experience.
Exciting. I think that it's an extravaganza. I hope to visit next month, but it's so inspiring that it started in a parking lot and now it's moved into a bigger site, and you even have food puestos.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about how you see these collaborations? Like, even though we're talking about it, how you've explained that your roots as an entrepreneur, but you really see yourself grounded in community.
Well, I participate in other events where I felt somewhat exploited, paid up to over $500 to participate in vending events to get my product, my name out there. And although the experience has been enriching and very valuable, of course, I haven't felt like I was in community during these events. And growing up, selling at the swap meet, even selling street vending here in Houston, I felt like I was in community. I would run into my neighbors, my classmates. It was a community that supported us. When we sold at the swap meet for 20 years, we were neighbors with the same people. So we would see them every Sunday. And sometimes they would bring us food left over from a party. We would break bread together. We would share tips. We would buy from each other. We would go to each other's parties. That's why I think the Goddess and the Queer Mercado is so important, because it's a platform. Not only is it a community, but it's a platform where you're not being exploited. The fee is minimal. We charge $65 for a 10 by 10 spot. So that low fee allows for you to promote yourself. And in a great day, you're going to make plenty of profit, and it allows for you to reinvest. It allows for you to spend money at the other booths and the other vendors. It allows for you to continue to want to come back and develop relationships with the other vendors that are there. And eventually, you nurture these relationships, and they all lead to collabs, and we create our own networks. We're increasing our visibility. And I'm so proud to say that since we started, a lot of the vendors that started with us, of course, outgrew us. And now I see them, doing fashion shows or doing their own podcasts, doing their own markets with other vendors that they met at the Mercado. And that is powerful. And that inspires me and motivates me, even the hardest days, because it's not easy running this market as a volunteer. It inspires me to keep going, because look who I'm talking to, Lydia Otero now, to Mario Novoa. I have cool friends, that are doing great things for the community. And I think that that's why this space is so important. It's attracting people who are aligned with our mission, vendors that want to be a part of this impact, artists that want to promote queer visibility in East LA for brown people, for people of color.
Diana, I wanted to just expand a little bit about my own experience in creating community, which I didn't know how to do. I'm a producer, I'm a film producer, and I know how to bring people together. And as the first president of the Los Angeles Film School Alumni Association, I wanted to create this network of people just so that we could meet and be in the same space because I didn't know other directors, I didn't know other cinematographers. But what happened is exactly what you just described. This network just started to form alliances and people started to create work together or start businesses together. I think that concept of creating the community and how you were able to, bring these groups of people together has just been an amazing experience. I've seen it firsthand. I've been to the Queer Mercado, and it's been lovely to not only have the vendors there, but there's also a sense of cultural celebration that's happening at the Queer Mercado. You have music, you have other elements that are performance based. I was wondering if you could just touch on a little bit about that as well. This opportunity of connecting people, and you also have, not only the vendors, but you also have performers and you have artists coming together.
So what I love most about that part, we have a mobile stage, and it's a really cool mobile stage, and that's where the majority of our fees go to for the stage. And sometimes we're able to provide like higher end, like we had Mariachi Arco Iris performance, the all LGBTQ mariachi. It's phenomenal. We had Selena impersonator. We had Juan Gabriel impersonator. So the community, the queer community from East LA that's coming now is like, oh my God, mija, I can't believe this is here. I got beat up when I was young, like more of the veterano queer community. And in fact, there was one attendee that asked me, mija, why did you call it queer mercado? That's a bad word. When I was growing up, that's such a bad word. And this was in the beginning when we first started the market. I told you know what? Because we have to embrace it. We have to embrace who we are. We have to let people know that I looked it up in the dictionary. It's a beautiful word. All it means is that you're different. She's like, she was a chola. She was like, you're right, mija, you're right. And it's so cool that we're throwing around this word that we can call each other queer, and it's not offensive, but it's actually beautiful, that you can be proud of it, that you're in East LA in front of, they call it the Parque de los Patos, because all the ducks from the lake come out in the mornings. You see all the ducks and the quinceañeras, it's such a beautiful park, and all the people from East LA celebrate quinceañeras every weekend. Sin falla. The quinceañera family will come out, and they're in their tejanas in the quinceañera. And the attendees that are coming are really enjoying that. You can only see that in East LA. You can only see that at the East LA Civic Center at the Queer Mercado, where the community is accepting us, where they know that they ask me, este es de los gays. I'm así, oh, pues qué bueno. Like, they're noticing and they're accepting and they're supporting the progress that the community is making because of the visibility. They see that the community is a community of creators, of artists, of performers, of talent, of people that just love each other and that are fashionable, that are expressive, that, just, want to be accepted and loved like the rest of us.
So this is Rita again. I just want to say, what advice would you offer to aspiring designers or activists who want to make a positive impact in their communities while pursuing their passions?
The advice that I have is definitely to be part, like Mario, like Lydia, be part of a network. Find a family, find a community that will accept you and really express yourself and exploit your uniqueness in service of others. Don't hide. Be loud and proud of who you are, of how you identify, and the right family will be attracted to you, will come and join you, will come and support you, and want to be a part of whatever movement that you've decided to take on. But definitely being part of a community, because sometimes your own family doesn't really accept you. My own family didn't really accept me. They thought I was crazy and a loca. My mom used to call me pajuela, and I had to find my own family. And I really embrace the queer mercado. The queer mercado is my family. I'm really inspired by all the creatives that come and share their stories with no shame, and they do it proudly and with great intentions and in efforts to create opportunities for others. And that's really beautiful and really inspiring.
Well said. I want to thank you very much for joining us here at Radio QGLLU. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It has been, Diana. Thank you for such wise and such emotional and touching words.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Mario and Rita. And thank you for having me and allowing me to share a little bit more about the Queer Mercado. And I can't wait to see you at the Queer Mercado. Please continue promoting and asking your networks to come and support. And let's continue with this movement.
All right. Sí se
Love
puede,
it.
¿verdad?
Join Radio QGLLU at the Queer Mercado on February 17th, 2024. We will be at a booth. Come by and say hello. We'd love to interview you if you would like to be interviewed, but come say hi and celebrate the Queer Mercado with us.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
I'm Rita Gonzales,
I'm Lydia Otero.
I'm Mario Novoa.
and thanks for listening.
Happy New Year!
Well, thank you for listening to The Out Agenda and Radio QGLLU. Like us on our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, or email us at theoutagenda@gmail.com. I'm Rita Gonzales. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful week. And remember that being out is the first step to being equal. Now stay tuned for This Way Out.